On the night of May 3, 2007, a 3-year-old girl vanished from a holiday resort in Praia da Luz, Portugal. It was an event that launched a massive, multinational police response and initiated an 18-year unresolved mystery. Her name was Madeleine McCann. Within days, her image was broadcast across the globe, with particular focus on a distinct physical trait, a coloboma, which is a dark, linear defect bleeding directly into the blue-green iris of her right eye. The geographic setup of the crime scene favored an intruder. The McCann family was staying in apartment 5A, a ground-floor unit positioned right on the edge of the resort, abutting a public street. The rear patio doors were left closed but unlocked to allow the adults to conduct periodic checks while they dined at a nearby restaurant. When her mother discovered the empty bed at 10 p.m., what followed was a failure of standard police procedure. Local Portuguese authorities failed to immediately cordon off the apartment. Dozens of people, including distraught guests and resort staff, lacking any forensic training, were allowed to move freely through the primary crime scene. By failing to secure the perimeter, investigators lost the golden hour, the immediate window after a crime when evidence is most pristine. Trace fibers and latent fingerprints were wiped out by foot traffic before forensic teams could arrive, forcing authorities to operate on assumptions rather than hard, uncorrupted data. Facing intense international pressure and a contaminated scene, the Portuguese Polícia Judiciária narrowed their focus. Instead of executing a widespread analysis of regional criminal elements or transient predators, they turned their attention entirely inward, on the immediate family. This suspicion was catalyzed by 2 specialized British sniffer dogs brought in to sweep the area months later. The dogs independently alerted to the scent of human cadavers and blood on the floor tiles of the apartment, as well as on the key fob and trunk of a rental car the family hired 25 days after the disappearance. But there is an analytical flaw in relying on canines for a conviction. An alert from a cadaver dog is an investigative tool, not legal proof. Without the corresponding extraction of human DNA to corroborate the scent, canine alerts hold virtually no evidentiary weight in court. Despite this lack of physical proof, Portuguese authorities formally declared both parents suspects, or arguidos under local law. A media frenzy followed, filled with speculative tabloid headlines, before the parents were cleared in 2008 due to a complete lack of evidence. This pursuit of a localized, confession-driven resolution blinded investigators. By following an unsupported theory, they missed the wider regional crime patterns occurring right outside the resort's borders. The 2007 investigation did collect physical evidence. Portuguese crime scene technicians gathered 18 biological swabs from the apartment's skirting boards, curtains, and floor tiles. These swabs successfully yielded human DNA, but they were classified as multi-contributor touch DNA, cellular material left behind by making physical contact with a surface. The samples were sent to the UK's Forensic Science Service. The laboratory confirmed the data was informative, but the degraded mixtures were too complex to separate using the computational tools of 2007. Constrained by threshold-based interpretation guidelines, the lab officially labeled the evidence inconclusive. This diagram shows a complex DNA electrophoretogram being systematically unmixed. It is a process made possible by TrueAllele, a probabilistic genotyping algorithm. This is a mathematical system designed specifically to separate highly degraded DNA mixtures and calculate exact likelihood ratios using Bayesian probability networks. It was the technology used to identify the highly degraded remains of victims from the 9/11 World Trade Center disaster. Recognizing the technological gap, the creator of TrueAllele formally offered to reanalyze the 18 unresolved 2007 data files pro bono. Despite this, the UK and Portuguese authorities refused to release the electronic files for independent analysis. The biological signature of an intruder is likely sitting inside those 18 files, yet they remain suppressed, held by bureaucratic inertia and an institutional fear of generating findings that could contradict a historic investigation. While the forensic data remained locked away, the investigative narrative slowly corrected itself. In 2011, Scotland Yard launched a review codenamed Operation Grange. They applied geographic profiling and uncovered a pattern. Between 2004 and 2007, an intruder had been targeting holiday villas occupied by British families in the Western Algarve, sexually assaulting young girls in their beds after entering through unlocked doors. Scotland Yard also achieved a breakthrough by correcting the night's timeline. For 6 years, the global search was anchored to the Tanner sighting, a report of a man carrying a child in pink pajamas at 9:15 p.m. Detectives debunked this by identifying a British holidaymaker returning from the resort's night creche at that exact minute, removing the basis for the police sketches. Eliminating that false lead shifted the abduction window forward by up to 45 minutes. This placed weight on a previously marginalized witness account, the Smith sighting. At roughly 10 p.m., an Irish family observed a man carrying a blonde, barefoot child toward the beach, at the exact moment Jerry McCann was verifiably accounted for at the restaurant. This 45-minute timeline correction removed the basis for parental cover-up theories. It proved an unidentified stranger was moving away from the Ocean Club with a child, pointing directly toward an opportunistic local predator. In the summer of 2020, German authorities announced a prime suspect, whose background aligned with Scotland Yard's behavioral data: Christian Bruckner, a 43-year-old German national with a documented history of extreme sexual violence. Between 1995 and 2017, Bruckner lived a transient lifestyle across the Algarve. He frequently resided in a distinctive early 80s Volkswagen camper van, funding his existence through drug trafficking and burglarizing vacation villas just like the Ocean Club. The circumstantial evidence surrounding him is dense. Telecommunications data confirms his mobile phone received a call directly near the resort, roughly an hour before Madeleine vanished. Furthermore, he possessed a history of violence in the exact locale, having assaulted an elderly woman in her Praia da Luz home just a mile away in 2005. Digital forensics even recovered a buried hard drive containing thousands of images of child abuse. To convert this circumstantial case into prosecutable proof, multinational teams have executed physical searches across Bruckner's former Algarvian campsites using ground-penetrating radar. However, these excavations have ultimately yielded only animal bones and fragments of old clothing. The geographic and behavioral profiling aligns with the known facts of the abduction, but under German law, securing a murder charge requires direct physical proof they currently lack in the soil. As of late 2025, Christian Bruckner has been released from prison after serving his sentence for the 2005 assault. He now lives under police surveillance, tracked via an electronic ankle monitor, and has refused all requests to be interviewed by Scotland Yard detectives. We are left with a contrast. While the prime suspect walks the streets of northern Germany, the 18-year public agony continues for a family still demanding answers and a child still missing. The identification of an intruder likely exists in the 2007 forensic files, held on a government server, while search teams continue digging in the Portuguese scrubland. The corrected timeline established the presence of a transient local predator, and the prime suspect fits the behavioral profile. Now, the case remains paralyzed, waiting for the authorities to subject their historical DNA to modern mathematics.